Okay, example 6, determine congruent polygons. And again, this is a very poorly worded example. It says all sides and angles of ABCD, quadrilateral ABCD, are congruent to the corresponding sides and angles of quadrilateral A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Okay, then it asks, is ABCD congruent to A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime? The answer is yes. If all the corresponding sides and all the corresponding angles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. So the simple answer is they gave us all the information they needed in the question, and we can say yes. Okay, but if we look at their solution, they really did not mean that all the angles were congruent. They only meant that angle B was congruent to B prime, and angle D was congruent to D prime. And again, for a program that's cost so much money for the district, you think they would have better quality and assurance. So they give you all the answers they need in your question, but let's go through what they talked about. So if we assume we only know B and B prime are congruent and angle D and angle D prime are congruent, we need to try and show that the angle A is congruent to angle A prime and angle C is congruent to angle C prime. Okay, and we would do that by using side, angle, side. We would split this into two triangles, right? And we could say triangle ABC here is congruent to triangle A prime, B prime, C prime by side, angle, side, right? Side, angle, side. Right, that tells us those triangles are congruent. Okay, these triangles are congruent. Okay, and then if we know those triangles are congruent, we know this pair of angles is congruent, right? By the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Once we know the triangles are congruent, we know their corresponding angles are congruent. So we know this angle here is congruent to this one, right? BAC is congruent to B prime, A prime, C prime. And then angle BCA is congruent to B prime, C prime, A prime. Okay, and then you can do the same thing in the other triangle, right? This is going to be congruent by, again, side, angle, side to this one over here. You have two pair of sides that are congruent, right? And then a pair of angles, the included angle, so side, angle, side. Once you know those triangles are congruent, we know the corresponding angles between them are congruent as well by the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, CP, CTC. So we know this angle here is congruent to this one here. And then this one here is congruent to this one here. It's supposed to be four of them. Okay. And then we know if these two angles are congruent and those two angles are congruent, if we use our angle addition postulate, if we add these two up and we add those two up, they're going to both be equal to the same thing. We can do a whole series of substitutions to show that that angle BCA is congruent to angle B prime, C prime, A prime. And likewise, we can set up some angle addition postulates here, and we can use some substitutions to show that angle BAD is going to be congruent to angle B prime, A prime, D prime. Okay, and I don't think the details are all that important for us, but if you go through here, well, they talk about rigid transformations, so they did it a different way. But for us, we could more easily talk about angle addition and then use substitution to show that these angles here are the same.